What's up, guys? How's it going? It is Matt here. So what I want to talk about today, guys, is everything that happened over on the Rust movie. The Alec Baldwin movie. If you guys been paying attention to the news, it's pretty much made mainstream news that there was a death on the set because of firearms negligence. All right, because of firearms negligence. Now I want to talk a little bit about this and. We just want to talk, we're going to talk about this a little. Now, before I get into that, today's video is brought to you by Call Beyond Duty Coffee. I'm a big fan of their coffee, and it's from first responders, law enforcement, and military veterans, and it's available. There's a link down in the description below. Go check it out or get yourself a sample pack, and it's going to be worth it. Now, what are we going to talk about when it comes to this? How are we going to best put this? Now, if you remember, a couple videos back, I did a video on how to prevent negligent discharges. And it was basically about basically following your safety rules. That's what it is. Is you follow the safety rules, you're not going to have a negligent discharge. Well, in a case like what happened over on the set of Rust, what happened there? There's a difference between a negligent discharge and just pure negligence, right? There's a difference between the two. There's much of a difference between the two. Now, I've watched videos before on, the movie guns and stuff like that. There's usually prop companies and stuff like that that actually have real guns, and they do some gunsmithing on it. There's a bunch of gunsmiths, pro-gun people, big in shooting, veterans and stuff like that. And they usually do gunsmithing work to make guns look fancy for the movies or stuff like that. Or they convert them over to blanks only and stuff like that. And they kind of make that stuff for the actual movies. The way how it usually works is they go onto the actual sets of the movies. They're in charge of those firearms that are out there, and they specifically handle every single firearm, and they teach the people that are on the set using those firearms how to check them, how to use them properly and make sure they're safe. And there's various levels of safety checks when it comes to the actual before the gun is even used on the scene. What happened in Rust is, I don't even know how to put it. I mean, did they have an armorer? Did they have an armor company? A lot of people said, oh, it's just a prop master that handed him a gun. A prop master that already had one complaint about that prop master's firearm issue or firearm safety issues that some of the actors or people on set were complaining about. I don't know what was going on with the set. Were they trying to, were they trying to make a better budget? Did they just not feel like going with an armorer company when it came down to it? I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I do know what happened, and all of us know what happened, is because of the negligence of the scene. Now, first things first, every news organization out there that I have seen, when they talk about what's been going on, they all say the same thing with that whole Alec Baldwin thing. They say, oh, he was handed a prop gun and it went off. A prop gun went off. Oh, a prop gun shot, went off. They did not hand him a prop gun, okay? A prop gun is like a rubber gun or a plastic type of looking gun that doesn't go bang, all right? Yes, it's a prop on the movie is what they're using for it. They didn't hand him a prop gun. They handed him a live pistol. They handed him a gun, not a prop gun. They handed him something that goes bang. Right? And it went bang, and unfortunately one person was killed and another person was seriously injured because of it. They did not hand him a prop gun. So I don't know why the news keeps calling this a whole prop gun. Now, one thing that I've learned over the years, doing the channel and stuff like that, is there's a lot of anti-gunners out there, and Alec Baldwin including, and a lot of Hollywood, majority of Hollywood, there's a lot of anti-gunners out there. Now, one thing that I've learned about these anti-gunners through the years, through the comments and stuff like that, is that they're pretty much scared of guns, is the best way I can explain it. That's the only way I could explain it. They don't know about guns. They don't know about the safety of guns. They don't even know the basic function of guns. I've seen pictures that people created of political memes or pictures where someone holds a revolver and they're pulling the trigger and it's ejecting a shell. It's like revolvers don't eject shells. They don't know the basic function of a gun, let alone safety when it comes to guns. But however, they're always about, telling the world how guns are bad, yet every single movie that Hollywood does, almost all the movies, they always have guns. The good characters always have guns. The bad characters always have guns. But yet they go after the movie and they talk about how guns are bad. In my experience and from what I've been learning from doing this channel, most people that are anti-gun like that are 100% scared of guns and they don't know how to work it. And because they're scared of guns, they don't practice, they don't learn the basics of the actual guns, how they work. They don't learn how to safely handle the firearms. They definitely don't learn how to safely check a firearm properly, all because they're anti-gun and they hate guns. Now, this video isn't an anti-gun rant. This is just a what the heck happened rant. All right, what the heck happened rant. Now I'm going to show you a couple basic things. Now, first things first, we're going to talk about the safety rules because I did this before. This is a safety rule for any single gun that you handle, any single gun in the world. Treat every gun as if it is loaded. Never point a gun at anything you do not intend to shoot. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Keep the gun on safe if it has safety until you intend to shoot, and know your target and what is behind it. Okay, know your target and what is behind it. You follow those safety rules and you are all set. If you point a gun at something that you don't intend to shoot and you pull the trigger, then yeah, you violate safety rules. If you keep your finger on the trigger when you're running around with a loaded gun, yeah, you violated a safety rule, even if it's not loaded, right? But technically, even if it's not loaded, you should be treating it as if it is loaded, because you treat every gun as if it's loaded, even if it ain't, right? So what happened on this movie set? Now, I've heard various stories. I don't know what's true and what's not. I've heard that that gun was used on a range before it and stuff like that too. All we know is what we've been told so far, which is he was pointing the gun at the camera and it went bang. And unfortunately, it killed the director and it injured a person behind it. It was an assistant director, I believe it was. 100% violations of every single safety rules out there. If you know anything about guns, if you had a legitimate company that actually had like the guns on set, that had legitimate armors on the set, something like this would have never happened because they wouldn't have allowed it to happen. Okay, they would not have allowed it to happen. Now I'm going to show you a couple basic things. Now there's debates out there whether you should do press checks on your guns and stuff like that too. And I've been saying this for years. For me, press checks is just standard operating procedure. You need to make sure the gun's loaded. All right. You always treat a gun if it's loaded, but you still want to make sure it's loaded, right? And before I put a gun on my hip, I check the chamber. If it's semi-automatic, I check the chamber. Before I put my revolver on my hip, I check the cylinder. Okay. I just look because it's just what you're supposed to do. Now I'm going to show you something. Now, every single gun that I'm using in this video is 100% loaded, right? Is 100% loaded. And you will see how I handle these every single time I pick them up and before I put them on my hip. So, now, I don't know what gun they were using in the actual movie. I don't know what, and I've heard it's a period piece, it might be a revolver. I don't know what it is. So I just grabbed several different guns out here just to show you. Right here, one of my favorite guns of all time, 1911. All right, my Rock Island Armory 1911. You can see the hammer is cocked back, the safety is up. I have magazine there, and you can safely assume, and judging by the weight of this, this is fully loaded. You can safely assume this is fully loaded, but is it? What you simply do with a single action semi-automatic pistol like this is you take the safety, you put it down, okay, because you have to do that. You point it in a safe direction, and what I do is I grab it over the top like this, okay, just like this. My fingers are well away from the trigger. I might hold it down here or something like this, but I don't put my fingers on that trigger, and you simply pull it back and look. Okay, you can see that right in there, and you can see that there's a round in the chamber. Then I send it forward and I put the safety back on, because that's how you do a press check with a 1911. That's one of the best ways to do a press check with a 1911. You could do the over the top method. Some people like doing this. Some people just like doing it from the rear. But in my experience, people have an initial hard time with that first pull when they're checking that. So they'll start pulling it, and they rack it and the round goes flying. So it's just safer, in my opinion. The better way to do it is just over the top. I take my two fingers over this. I'm pinching the beaver tail between my thumb and my finger, and I hook my fingers on the sights, and I take a look, and I can tell right there that there is a round in the chamber. Then I pop the safety back on. All right, the same thing goes for a double action pistol. So here's a Beretta. The same thing goes for this. Now, what's great about a Beretta like this that has a safety on this, my safety is still down when I'm doing these press checks. Now, there is one downside when it comes to doing press checks. There's a lot of people like doing the over the top. You can't really do that with this because it's got an open slide. And a lot of people like doing it for the rear, do a press check. You do it like that with a double action pistol, and this hammer is far forward, and you have to move it extra farther back in order to get it. So it takes a lot of force to get it back, and then once it passes, you rack around real quick. So once again, the best way to do it for this Beretta, I keep it on safe like this. Once again, I pinch the beaver tail. I hook my two fingers on right behind the sights, and I take a look, and look, right there. I can see that at night. You could feel it. It's in there. You do that and then you check the safety, make sure it is down. Now in this gun, there's also a lever right here that's red that says it's a loaded chamber indicator. It says that there's a round in the chamber. But it's simply every single time I pick this up before I put it in a holster, I do that. It takes like 2 seconds. Not even. It takes 2 seconds to do that. Now when I pick up a revolver, I do this every single time I pick up a revolver. Now, if he was using a revolver in this movie, I'm just going to shake my head and be like, what the heck are you thinking? Because you could clearly, just by looking at this, you could tell just the side of this that it's loaded, right? You could see the shells that are in there. You could see the shells that are in there. But what I do every single time I pick up this gun before I put it on my hip is I open up the cylinder, I check the rounds. I actually check the primers, make sure none is impacted, which means they've been shot or the hammer went down for some weird reason. I check, I rotate it, and then I put it back in there and I rotate it, make sure it's locked in place so it doesn't cause a malfunction. And then I usually put it in my holster. All right. That's how I usually do it. Now I do the same check for every single gun that I own. Now you get to my CZ. There is a clear loaded chamber indicator right there in the top. You could feel it at night. But once again, what I would do is I'd pinch the beaver tail. I'd pull it back like this and I'd take a look and you can see it right there. It's loaded. Then I make sure the decocker is all the way down so the hammer goes down. This is just standard operating procedures for a firearm. 100% standard operating procedures for a firearm. So there's no way that that gun should have gone off at the movie. Every single person that handled that firearm should have checked that gun. Now, I'm an instructor, so for very basic, simplest classes you teach the safety rules, you teach the basics of how to use the gun, but one of the most important things that you always teach too is before you hand off a gun to anyone else, you check the gun to make sure it's loaded. And then the person that you hand it off to, they check the gun to also confirm that it is loaded or unloaded. That's just a hands-down experience. Now, you should never technically hand a loaded gun to anyone, but if you had to, that's what you would do. And you'd let them know this is loaded. You check, see it is, then give it to them, then check, yep, confirmed it, and then they put it in a safe direction, put it in their holster. Every single person that handled that firearm before it got into Alec Baldwin's hand, including Alec Baldwin, should have checked that firearm to make sure it was safe, to make sure that it wouldn't have gone bang. And in my personal opinion, every single person that had touched that firearm prior to that scene, getting ready for that scene, should be charged and put in jail. Because their negligence caused the death of one person and a casualty of another person. And that is 100%, that is my opinion when it comes down to this. Every single person should be charged because negligence was across the entire board when it came to that scene that unfortunately killed an innocent person's life. Now, Alec, I've never been a fan of Alec's politics. I like his movies. I've always been a fan of his movies. But I can't imagine what he's going through right now. Accidentally shooting someone. I can't imagine what he's going through. And I feel bad for him. I really do feel bad for him. But at the same time, it was also his responsibility and the responsibility of everyone else before that scene was shot to check that firearm to make sure that tragedy never happened in the first place. And if you simply knew how to check that firearm, knew the safety rules, and you knew everything about how to use that firearm, you knew how it worked, and you knew how to check it safely, that would have never happened. And this wouldn't be a discussion. This wouldn't be in the news. Anyway, guys, if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about me. And remember, guys, it's our responsibility to take care of each other and protect each other. And at times, even from ourselves. Peace.